Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, she has vowed to do everything she can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office. That vow, along with her leadership in the January 6th Commission and her vote to impeach Trump, have Cheney facing a tough challenge in today's Wyoming primaries.
In the fight to maintain her seat, she's brought in a big gun, her father and former Vice President Dick Cheney. She's also wooing voters from an unusual source. Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka reports.
Polls are not looking good for Liz Cheney, although she brings a lot of name recognition and family history in today's primary battle. In this case, that could possibly help with an unlikely source of votes: Democrats.
And on January 6th, Donald Trump turned their love of country into a weapon against our Capitol and our Constitution.
Representative Liz Cheney has been front and center much of the summer. She's been vocal as one of two Republicans taking a lead role in key January 6th hearings and steadfast in her belief that Trump bears responsibility for the January 6th riots and should be disqualified from holding a political office ever again.
I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office.
But the backlash over the criticism has put her re-election bid in jeopardy.
There is no rhino in America who has thrown in her lot with the radical left more than Liz Cheney. Terrible. She has gone crazy.
Trump's backing Cheney's main primary rival, attorney Harriet Hageman. Analysts see a huge uphill battle for Cheney.
Polls show she is behind, and I would not be surprised if she gets knocked out.
Cheney's keeping up the fight by bringing in her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, for an attention-getting ad in the days leading up to her primary.
There has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward.
Even if Cheney's message about rejecting Trump doesn't stir Wyoming Republicans, it's an unusual appeal to Democrats, who can cross over Tuesday given Wyoming's rule allowing a relatively easy party switch for voters.
And I'm a perfect example of how her behavior in Washington has helped her, because she is, without asking for my vote, has convinced me that she is, without question, the best candidate to continue her career as a House of Representatives member.
Analysts are skeptical that Democrats could make up the gap for Cheney, as a University of Wyoming poll from just last week has her trailing by just under 30 points. Andrew?
All right, Matt, appreciate you being with us today. Liz Cheney is among 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach former President Trump. So how did the others do in the GOP primaries?
Well, in a word, not well. I mean, if you look at the numbers, 4 of those 10 just didn't even bother running again. They retired, chose not to run. Part of that is due to redistricting in those states, but the other part, the major part, is the Trump factor. And if a primary opponent was endorsed by the former president, how they would fare in that. And if you look at the people who did stick around, 3 have already lost their primaries. And Cheney could be the 4th, depending on what happens today. Only 2 have advanced to general elections. That was Dan Newhouse in Washington State and David Valadao in California. So if you look at the numbers, you're at about 4 that just didn't even bother, 4 that could lose, depending on what happens with Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and then only 2 have advanced. So it's pretty easy math. If you voted against the president or if you voted to impeach him, your outcomes in this primary season have not been great.
Incredible, Matt. I'm particularly interested in your take on Liz Cheney. I mean, she has really obviously taken a stand, considered a traitor by a lot of Republicans, now kind of a hero to many Democrats and people on the left. What do you think about her political future, presuming she loses today? Do you see her in the future serving in a Democratic cabinet in some way, or is she out of politics? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's interesting because that question for her has come up a lot, especially since the January 6th hearings have started. She's not going to commit to anything, as most politicians don't like to commit that far in the future, because she was focused on this primary race. But it's really hard to see her, if she doesn't at least make a bid to go for the presidency, at least backing another candidate, because she has made her thoughts pretty clear. She would like to keep Donald Trump as far far away from the White House as she possibly can. That could mean a think tank or a PAC with money supporting other candidates. But aside from that, on the national level, those January 6th hearings, if they're not appealing to Republicans, you at least have independents who may have shied away from the Republican Party because of Donald Trump that this does appeal to, or Democrats who are fed up with the Democratic Party who have gone independent that look at Liz Cheney as somebody who stands up for what they believe in, for what so-called traditional conservatives believe in, which is country over party. So her national profile being this elevated, it's hard to see this being the end of her political career. But before we get to all that, we got to get through the primary.